Hello everyone. So welcome to this new topic, new subject. Perhaps we would be starting now. By now you would have gone through many things like history, geography, economy, art and culture and things like that. Now we are going to start with GS4. GS4 is basically ethics, very conventionally named as we know it as ethics. So see, this, as you already know, has got a lot of mysterious kind of underpinnings as far as the understanding of this particular topic is concerned, particular paper is concerned, because this paper is worth 250 marks and 250 marks are very high and critical thing for a student. Now if you see, and it's not just about these 250 marks, like for example GS 1, 2 and 3 also has 250 marks each, right? But returns, if you compare with GS 4, out of 250, GS 1, 2 and 3, returns that you will be getting in GS 4 will be high. Like for example, on an average, if you see, 110 would be very good score. Even here also it is around like 110, 115, not that much also people don't get basically. But this is like a very good score if you get something like that. But in GS 4, there is a very high chance that you can get 130, there are people who are getting 135, 140, okay. Even somebody got more than 150 also. But leave those exceptional cases, the serious good students can get this much. So though it is 250 marks, you also need to understand, if you compare, the returns that this question paper is going to give you, the stakes are much more than GS 1 to 3. Does that mean am I suggesting that GS 1, 2, 3 is not very important? Obviously not, because the crucial aspect is here is your preparation of GS 1, 2, 3 is what going to help you in your preparation of GS 4 also. Most of your content of GS 1, 2, 3 would be useful for GS 4. And you have to study, you have to take this paper from that perspective, okay. So GS 4 is like, generally we know in optional we have paper 1 as some kind of theory and thinkers and paper 2 as applied. What you can say is GS 1, 2, 3, you know things like what is geography, what is history, how things work, why things work like that, and then you apply it from a ethical point of view. Now ethical, we will come to that point, what is ethical point of view here. See, we need to understand one thing, this is a kind of paper where perhaps what I understand is very few people actually understand as to why, how and what this paper is. Like GS 1, 2, 3, we already know why it has been there. You need to know the general studies, you need to know the general understanding and awareness about the society, which clearly applied is called current affairs, which is also very important, okay. Basically sometimes though it feels that we study all this so that we can understand current affairs. And if you see the kind of question papers UPSC is being setting for GS 1, 2, 3 and 4, it's a clear-cut message that everything is being done, or all the efforts for GS 1, 2, 3 are efforts for nothing but understanding the current affairs in a better way. So ultimately the finishing touch will be given by current affairs. But in the same context, current affairs is again from the descriptive or mechanical point of view, in terms of knowing things, how they work and how they should be working and like that. But GS 4, it's a different thing altogether. So if you see that way, GS 4 is closer to interview okay, than GS 1, 2 and 3. So why would I say this? Why it is closer to interview? Number one, personal aspect. So GS 4, even in the paper, you will need a lot of personal aspect. You know, it may not be your personal life to be put on the paper, but personal points of views are very important. Here, you have to rely a lot on the book. Just simple do one thing. Read any question in GS 1, 2, 3, history, geography, polity, economy. Read any one of the questions, and for sure your mind will search the answer in some of the books or material, if it is current affairs, that you have read. So basically what happens is, your mind will search the answer from the text, okay, from the material that you have read, clear cut. Okay, you may not, your mind may not kind of compel you, or automatically at least will not go to any other thing but whatever you have read, listened and all that. When it comes to GS 4, it is not necessarily the case. In fact, this is the big problem happens when you are habitual to this method. When you are asked the question, immediately your mind goes back to anything, whether I have read something about it, and if you have read it, you recollect it and mold it according to the paper and put it. Same is the case with optional. Optional, though, it's clear cut whatever you have read. Even in fact, you are advised not to write anything unless it is being backed up by some thinker. Anyway, so in GS 4, on the other hand, situation is different. There would be questions, there would be content, there would be scenarios where you are required to, you know, you are required to go back to, required to try to remember, required to inquire into not just the material. Yes, material will be there so that you know the articulation and things, but also the experiences of your own, experiences of others that you have heard and listened. You might have read some incident, you might have seen some incident, okay. You might have seen something in the newspaper, not as a matter of typical current affairs, but some incident, something. So the point is, this particular paper needs something extra, something different than GS 1, 2 and 3. Please try to understand this one very important thing, and most of the people go wrong here, that GS 1, 2 and 3 can very reliably depend upon the books and materials, okay. And you can, you can read more and more books, you can get more and more content for that. But here, yes, books would be, material would be required to understand things, but there are, so you need to open up more to be able to articulate your own experiences or somebody else's experiences, and think from a practical, pragmatic point of view, as if you are actually being part of that particular system. Here subjectivity is not there, in the sense your role as a person is not important here, okay. They will ask you perhaps, what are the different kinds of temple architectures, where your role as an actor, as a part of the play, you are not there. You are a spectator sitting on this side of the table, watching and reproducing. Like if they are asking about some policy also, what you do? You observe from the outside. So here the view is completely third person, but here it is not completely third person. Here sometimes because like for example, they ask question, what are the different institutions, different things, different units of the society that impacts a particular person's ethics and morality. Now, obviously you might have read somewhere, you might have gone, but then point is, in addition to what you have read, you might have seen some things also in front of you, how some particular thing which might not be the part of things that you have read. The material, so-called material, has not been able to cover those things which your experience would have seen it, and perhaps that kind of pointers in answer would be appreciated more, because those would be genuine things that you might have already seen yourself, and you have put thought on it. But does that make material and other things irrelevant? No. Point here is, whatever you have seen or felt, okay, or had an experience of, you should be able to have vocabulary enough to articulate those things in the form of answer. So for example, you might have been in a situation, jisko normally in our normal parlance we might say something about difficult situation, it was a tough thing and I was confused, and so many things we use colloquially. But for that there are terms, okay, that is very important, that we should be acquainted with the terms. Like a situation where you are not able to decide what is right and wrong because both seems right, both seems wrong. If you do one, there will be problem with the other. If you do the other, the problem will be the first one. That situation is called crisis of conscience. So these kind of words certainly you are required to know. But does that mean the experiences which indicate those words should also be coming from the books? Not at all. In fact, if they are not coming from the books and coming from your own experience, your personal experience, somebody else's experience, some book, novel experience, some famous story experience, some history experience, some experience from Gandhi's life, experience from Vivekananda's life, Mother Teresa's life, like that, or your own life, or your parents' life, your grandparents' life, some situation where you might have seen something for which you may not be knowing the correct word, correct term for that. But certainly you might have gone through the experience. You are always and you are welcome to write that experience there. But obviously for that the wording, the terminology and things would be required from the books. That is for sure. So here it's not just about third party watching things. Obviously there will be some questions where you would be required to watch like a third party. Like you see from the administration point of view. See, when you see from the administration point of view, you need to understand one thing. It's not just some citizen is here, some administrator is here, they are interacting, and I am seeing from the third point of view. That is okay when it comes to GS2. It is required, policy making and all that. But when it comes to ethics, you have to be either sitting here also, and you have to be at the position of the citizen also, and think what would be the better situation here, what would be the improvement possible, and this becomes more pragmatic. So point is, GS4 you need to see from a different perspective. That's why generally what happens, GS is expanded as general studies, which very correctly applies to these three fellows. But I have given a different terminology for GS4, where I consider it as a general sense, more of a general sense than general studies, which is the case for GS1, 2 and 3. Why I am saying these things is, your perspective for the ethics should be very clear, otherwise you will end up being part of that spiral where you are reading 10 books and 15 books, but you are not getting anything out of it because you don't know what to write suddenly in the exam. They are not asking some theoretical questions, 1 or 2 questions, that too not every year they will ask. Okay, 7 Sins of Gandhi, John Rawls' concept of justice, deontology, for example, I am saying deontological aspect, perspective of Kant, utilitarian perspective of Mill. So point is, or Gandhi's views on casteism, Ambedkar's views on casteism, blah blah blah, those things, feminism and all. But if at all they ask, very unlikely that they ask. Their question is very straightforward. They are asking you to think like a citizen who is bothered about the administration and the society, and who knows that the ethics and morality of the society is very important, which provides the lubrication for the smooth working of the society, the trust, and there are words for everything. So first and foremost, perhaps I would suggest each and every one of you is focus on words to understand everything. All the terminologies that ethics is using, I'm pretty sure all of you would have gone through that kind of feeling and experience and a situation which that words indicate. Okay, if like for example I say there is a word called gratitude. Now see, why do you think, why to go this hard way like this, why to read somebody else's gratitude and all? What is gratitude? Gratitude is that feeling that you have. Like for example, whenever, see, anybody would have done contribution to your life, your growing, maybe your parents, which is very obvious, it happens on almost all the cases, grandparents in some cases very specifically, some specific teachers perhaps when you were younger and you were in the school. And when you kind of see them, when you talk about them, when you sit alone and think about them, you have a lot of positive emotions for them. That kind of positive emotion where you feel obliged to, you feel that the person has done such a great contribution to my life, that feeling which certainly makes you feel very good, that. And if you express that feeling to that particular person, again that person will feel much more pleasantness in him or her. So that's the specific quality of gratitude. So you need to understand from this perspective. Like for example, you might be having your elder sister, for example, and there have been cases like this, or elder brother also for that matter, who perhaps has, because of some economic situation in the home for last 7, 8, 10 years, would have worked to earn money so that family can be sustained, and the kind of feeling you have for that particular person would be of immense affection and emotional respect. Okay, that emotional respect is nothing but what gratitude is. And gratitude doesn't mean that you have to show it all the time. Obviously gratitude can be, thank you. So this is exactly what, like for example, now the person provided tea for me, so I felt good about it. So the thank you came natural to my expression. That thank you is expressing my gratitude to Sanjay ji because he provided tea, and I was not expecting, I was in the flow of lecture, but it makes you feel better. And though, see, if you go very strictly, he is doing his duty, I am doing my duty, that's okay. That is his point of view, that he has to do his duty and I have to do my duty. But still, this lubrication, this smoothness in the relationships comes in when you express your gratitude. You first of all have this sense of gratitude and then express it. So, point is, this is just a spontaneous example. What I was saying is, there are feelings, there are situations, there are confusions that you have already gone through. Crisis of conscience. You might have been in such a situation where you don't know what to do. You have an exam, for example, you have to prepare, there is some other friend asking you, and you know that you want to help the person, but there are some practical situations, something of that sort. Like take a simple case now, this Corona Omicron pandemic is going on, and suddenly you realize that you are having a mild symptoms and you are very much okay. Last 2-3 days you have not, you didn't have much of a problem. You can actually work from home, basically work from home. You are not having any physical pain or anything of that sort, but you have, this thing is positive. In that case, what happens? You know that you can work, you know that you have been able to, like your bodily, you are very much capable, and there is very important thing that you had promised to someone, and you know that it's very important for the person, but now you cannot go out of the home. The situation is such that though you want to help the person like anything, and obviously you cannot do it through online things, social media. If it was, then you would have done it anyway. So, but situation is such that even if you want to work for someone, you want to do something for the person which you had promised, you are not able to do it, and you know that if you are not you are not going to do it now, there will be problem in the person's life, or some other issue would be created for him. So this situation is like a crisis of conscience. Now you don't know what to do, because if you go, the person might get corona, most likely the person will get, and if somebody in his family or her family gets gets it, who is perhaps not like senior citizens or some other comorbidity or something. So, these precautions obviously you know that you have to take, but the point is here, then you have this sense of guilt also mixed up with some justification also. So, this is a situation called crisis of conscience, like you want to help, you want to do something, but you are not able to do it and nobody can help it, nobody can do anything about it. So, what I am trying to suggest here is, you certainly might have gone through almost each and every terminology the ethics this thing needs in your own life for that matter, and you might have seen things happening in the administration, injustice you might have seen, justice you might have seen, okay, equality, then liberty, fraternity, then all other like compassion, empathy, sympathy, compassion, integrity, what is honesty, character, virtue, these all words. So, first and foremost thing that you need to do is focus on each and every word and try to think of anything that you have done in your life qualifies to be called with that name. If that is done, half of your work in ethics is done. Rest of the thing is juggling, rest of the thing is playing with these words in such a way that you can come up with something positive for the people on the particular situation when you are in, you are also in that situation and things like that. But, so one thing is this terminology and all. So, first be sure that you know the terminology and you have the glossary and you go through. We also try to provide some list of exhaustive list of glossary of the terminologies basically, and so that you can understand as to what can be called as penance, what can be called as perseverance, what is as we say gratitude, what is guilt, okay. So, what is punishment, why it is there, and yes, these kind of it is not just about those, there are some administrative ethical aspects also, which is more like a system than somebody's experience, one person's experience, like we have a citizen charter, we have accountability, we have responsibility and things like that. So, there are many terms like that. If you know each and every term properly, it will be very, very helpful for you to understand everything. Okay. So, coming back to the point that we were talking about is, so that is the context, it is very, very personal. Okay. Yes, there are some theories to be used, and especially in the because generally what happens, ethics paper is generally classified into three categories. One is people call it philosophy. Now, when we say philosophy, we actually talk about basics. Okay. This is more personal in nature. Okay. Then another is social psychology, or basically psychology. Psychology, social psychology, social and personal both, emotional intelligence and all. Okay. So, this is like semi-personal and semi-social. When I say personal, I mean to say subjective, okay, not just like an, see the way you understand law of gravity and the way you understand guilt or gratitude, there is a difference, isn't it? So, law of gravity you understand as a principle, it is a scientific principle where it is an objective reality for you. Your feeling and your things does not matter, the apple will anyway fall down and that is it. Okay. So, but those are scientific principles. Here this humanities specifically speciality of the humanities subject is this, that it is semi-objective. You study, the way you study it is objective because that is the only way you understand things, logic and rationality and objectivity, but cannot divorce yourself completely from your personal experiences. You have to combine these two to have a holistic understanding of things. So, and third is administrative. So, administration is more like a typical normal study that we have, more objectivity here, okay, less personal. Though there is personal aspects, and see, these compartment only for understanding. GS4 is only for understanding. There is a lot of fluid things happening. It's not that they are not connected. They are connected. Okay. Because why they are connected? Because even administration is made up of whom? People. Right. Okay. Psychology of whom? People. And persons means again people. So from that perspective, if you see, this is going to be a very important aspect to understand these three things, and this is how syllabus is also divided. Now UPSC, the way they have made the syllabus, we will go to the syllabus, because that's knowing the philosophy knowing the ethics syllabus, not just philosophical aspect but other aspects also, is very, very important, because if you go through the syllabus and if you go through the question papers, it will be very difficult to link these two directly. There is a link, certainly there is a link. You can link it here more. You can clearly see that, okay, question has come from citizen charter, it is about code of ethics, the question is about international relations, question is about basic principles of administration, accountability and things like that. But here, and here also to some extent you can, like question is about emotional intelligence or persuasion or social influence and like that, attitude and all that. But here it's very difficult. Okay, question may not directly come, and it's very difficult to actually link these two, but they are linked. Obviously question doesn't come just like that. We'll also have one session on yesterday's paper of GS4, like this year's paper I would say, 2021 mains, but happened in January 2022. So that also will have one session, we'll try to keep it live possibly, and obviously our foundation students will get to have a hang of it. But that would be very brief this thing, because for foundation people it's better to understand, because you suddenly get bogged down by the questions and suddenly you feel that I don't know anything about it, which is absolutely okay. What I am trying to suggest is just try to understand things, just try to slowly bit by bit try to gather things, try to have that particular aspect, have that particular lens of looking at things from ethical point of view. Okay, and then slowly you will understand everything. So this is how the paper is also divided. So we were discussing about this basically, that 250 marks. Okay, it's very close, like from its nature and its qualities, closer to interview. We call it interview on paper, and essay is like your intellectual capacities on the paper, like that is also kind of interview paper. But ethics paper is like interview on the interview on the paper. We generally call it colloquially, just to understand. It's not a very hard and fast definition of it. Okay, so that's how paper 4 we can broadly have a perspective about. Okay, now another aspect as to why, see, before going to what is the syllabus and what is to study and all, first it's very, 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 very important to understand as to why UPSC decided to have this paper, or why GS4. Why do UPSC coming up with this particular paper? See, I am sure most of you already might have some opinion about it, and almost all of the opinion that you are going to say, you are going to think about it, because I request you to think about it. I have written here why GS4. I would like you to think about it. If you want, you can pause the video and think about it, why UPSC might have come up with this paper. And this is very, very important to understand, understand the mind of UPSC and the administration and the government in general, and try to catch up with that, because then only you will be able to get maximum possible marks. Now, there have been a lot of, see, there are two extreme views here, generally we hear, okay. Does this paper makes person ethical? Okay, because you might have seen that somebody who is not ethical in his or her life might be getting 140 marks, somebody who is very ethical might be getting 80 marks. You might have seen, okay, and that's why you might be concluding that it has nothing to do with being ethical. It is just like another subject, study it and write it. This is one extreme view, just another subject and write it. Second view is, it's all about, okay, it's all about person being ethical. If you are ethical, you will get 140. If you are unethical, you will get 80. This might be UPSC's expectations, but then you know the expectations of UPSC, okay, are the the instrument the UPSC is using for this expectation is not correct, because one paper obviously would not be completely changing the personality of the person who is appearing for the UPSC, and that too when he or she is bombarded anyway too much with other topics. It's not that he is sitting around say and studying everything. So intellectual understanding, okay. So what we can say is here, it's like somebody not ethical also can get, means it has nothing to do with ethical, means you are just intellectually understanding. Basically, intellectually understanding, no reformation in your own personality. And second, only reform in the personality. Reforms personality, okay, and no, intellectual understanding is not important. Now, when I say intellectual understanding, I will explain you. Like for example, if I ask you what is the difference between ethics and morality, what is the difference between integrity and honesty, what is the difference between compassion and empathy? See, somebody knowing these things is one aspect, intellectual, and somebody following these things is another aspect. So people say simply, it's all about, so one extreme say that GS4 is all about knowing it, knowing and reproducing, okay, and some people will say ethics is all about following it. So obviously, as I am already suggesting that these two are two extreme views, okay. So obviously the real impact, but by the way, UPSC expects these things and these things also. They are not either or. Basically, intellectual knowing and following. So basically what happens, if you go point by point, it starts with knowing. Right? When you know in the sense understanding, right? So basically UPSC expect these two, both the things happen, and like this. The understanding impacts your following and following impacts your understanding, further improves it. So that is expected churning through this paper by UPSC and in general. So what happens generally when you understand, like for example, there is something called crisis of conscience, there is something called gratitude. It's not that you have not felt gratitude before, but now you know that as a very proper term. Intellectually also we understood it. Now what happens then? The moment you understand something, you start appreciating it. Okay, you start appreciating it. The moment you, like for example, honesty, as we talked about, gratitude, If you talk more about ethics, you have to be ethical, isn't it? So the moment you appreciate more, you incline more towards those values and things, and inclined in the sense you become little more positive about it. Your attitude towards these things change, because otherwise people think that this morality all doesn't work, practical life में ये सब नहीं होता है, and all. See, these are very superficial thoughts which almost everybody has some or the other point of their life. But as the person goes on having more and more experiences in their life, more and more perhaps shocking experiences, some negative experiences, some positive experiences, the person's understanding of the ethical aspect about the terms and the society's ethical values and things keeps changing, keeps improving, keeps becoming deep. So this particular process of deepening of one's inclination towards ethical behavior enhances once the understanding, followed by appreciating, followed by inclining. Then what happens? You internalize. So if you incline more and more, you start internalizing those things. Automatically things starts happening inside you, because, and point is, they are not forceful, because you yourself are inclined. Forceful ethics is not ethics. Okay, there can be law which can be enforced. Ethics cannot be enforced. Ethics can be only inspired. Okay, need to understand, it's a thumb rule. See, the moment you start enforcing ethics, then it becomes law. Okay, because then here it is assumed that people are not basically not inclined to do it. You have to force or give some kind of incentive for them to be ethical. Okay, and once you start internalizing, then you will start following or live like that. Live according to those values. Gina. So this is what is the process UPSC and any responsible government institutions would certainly like to have. So they want you to go through this process. How much you would be achieving the end, that's not a important thing, that we will see. How, but UPSC is certainly expecting you to go through this system, the whole system, from knowing things to following those things. Like knowing what integrity is, then following it. Knowing what compassion is, then following it. And now this following is not because of some external pressure, not because of some enforcement, but because you incline to follow it. Now you incline to do something. When do you think you are inclined to do something? When it gives you pleasantness of experience. See, this is a very important. Now you think, please think, this pleasantness of experience, it's a very, very important driving force in your life, isn't it? Now when we say pleasantness of experience, we basically talk about pleasure, happiness, joy. Okay, then so many positive words we talk about: relief, relaxation, excitement, satisfaction. Okay, you are understanding what I am saying? These are all pleasant experiences, positive experiences. So when I say here positive, now this positive is the sense something which you would look for. Okay, some kind of satisfaction, some kind of excitement, relaxation, relief, joy, happiness. Okay, then pleasure. So These, and there are many other terms, different terms, ultimately all are what? The kind of experiences inside your body. Now this depends on so many things, like pleasure can be after eating a chocolate, for example, happiness when you see someone, joy is when you are just happy or joyful, relief is when you are out of some kind of negative experience, like you are feeling suffocated, or you are feeling very warm, very hot outside, you came inside and sat in the cold, cool kind of environment, you feel relieved. Or some situation that you were in, and then somehow the situation gets rid of it, you feel relaxed, then obviously relieved and relaxed. Then excitement, your excitement to do things is perhaps the kind of pleasantness that you feel inside to do things. Satisfaction, a sense of satisfaction in the sense you had some achievement and then you got it, so you are satisfied. So then there are some intellectual stimuluses also, intellectual logical satisfaction also is there. So there are many aspects like that. So point is, now do you think this one particular very important thing, how ethics are also dependent on these things, and what is ethics, the role of ethics here. See, everything that you do, if I quote myself, everything that you do in your life, you do it with the goal of experiencing pleasantness. Yes or no? Think. Everything that you do is to have a experience of pleasantness in you. And this pleasantness, when it becomes complex, it's always more pleasantness as against less pleasantness, or long-term pleasantness as against short-term pleasantness, because there is something called fear also, which also drives you. But again, what is fear? Like for example, your fear is basically avoiding negative experiences, avoiding unpleasant experiences. So the imagination of unpleasant experience brings fear in you. Now fear is possibility of unpleasant experience. Fear means what? Possibility of unpleasant experience. Okay, perceived to be beyond control, beyond control of an individual. So what is fear? Fear is possibility of unpleasant experience perceived by that individual to be beyond his or her control. Then you fear. So कोई अनप्लेजेंट एक्सपीरियंस आने वाला है, कोई नेगेटिव एक्सपीरियंस आने वाला है, which you cannot stop or which is beyond your control. This particular scenario, that is possibility of unpleasant experience and lack of control, both combined together brings sense of fear in you. So, and sometimes fear also drives you to do things, but you are not doing things for the fear, you are trying to do things for relief. So like if some fear is there for you and in front of you some situation is there, the motivation is to get rid of the fear. So and to why you want to get rid of the fear is because you don't want to remain in unpleasant experience. You need to understand one thing, nobody would like to be in unpleasant experience. Now you might say, no, some people like to be in some kind of a trouble all the time. Consciously, nobody would like to do that, number one. Number two, what happens sometimes, someone derives pleasantness in some other aspect which may not be, may not be part of your normal understanding. Okay, like for example, somebody, lives a very simple life, very frugal life, but certainly they derive the pleasantness from something else. They have this pleasantness for contributing to the society. So they derive, 24/7, they are just happy by the fact that they are doing things for other, and rest all things doesn't matter for them. Some people derive pleasantness just by the fact that, like, somebody derives pleasure from consumption of some substances, for example, intoxicants, or otherwise also eating too much food is also a kind of intoxicant. And somebody derives pleasantness by not doing it because this is harmful and I am not doing something harmful. So the person who is like, healthy diet person derives pleasantness just by the fact that he or she is following the healthy diet. Okay. So point I was trying to say is, ultimately everything is done on the basis of the perceived pleasantness, and it keeps changing for a person, it keeps changing. Now what happens here is, you might have heard something called Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Okay, but need is what, if you apply this logic, that pleasantness is the only need that you have. As a forget about the formative years, but at least when you start understanding yourself, when you become conscious of yourself, basically when you are adult, so the way you think is for pleasantness. So pleasantness is the perhaps only need that drives you. So when you draw Maslow's pyramid of hierarchy of need, okay, so here need is only pleasantness. So what we can say is, we can have our own hierarchical pyramid of sources of pleasantness. Okay. So basically he talks about hierarchy of needs is very biological and physical. Okay, physical needs. Okay, sleep, eat and reproduce, rest, food and reproduce. These are the needs. No, needs means what? The need means the person have a sense of lack, and that sense of lack means that sense of lack drives him. Basically what drives him? Basically his imagined situation of satisfying that lack drives him. So if somebody is driven by money, means he is not just earning money, he wants to earn money because he knows that earning money will give me pleasantness of experience. So it's a futuristic thing. Then comes little settlement kind of needs, safety, okay, and security and continuity kind of needs. Then comes emotional needs. Then comes moral needs, and then comes spiritual or self-actualization. Don't call it spiritual, self-actualization. So this you might have heard, but here you have to see from the sources of pleasantness now, right? So here, now you might think, what is the relation that it has with the ethics? Yet there is a relation, I'll tell you. Now, if you see, as you grow, as you climb up the ladder, your reliance or your need to depend, or your dependence, we would say, your dependence on resources of the society goes down. So your biological and physical needs others, because when we say resources, basically other humans. So your happiness depends more on other people. So as you go above other people, other resources, now when we say other resources, obviously other people also want that resources. So you will get those resources only if the other person allows, or there will be fight. Okay, like there is a requirement of food. If you are hungry and there is less food, there will be fight. there won't be any ethics. So, point is, as you go above the ladder, okay, forget about self-actualization, at least till moral level, you become more and more selfless. Now, how much selfless depends on many other things, but more and more selfless, more and more human you become. That's the difference between human and non-human or animal for that matter. So that's how our ethics also gets evolved. So though ethics is a kind of a, we have a different ways to look at it, utilitarian point of view, deontological point of view and things like that. But as when it comes to practical implementation of ethical values, when you grow on this ladder, your driving, your sources of pleasantness becomes better for the others. So you will depend less on the others' resources. You become, basically what happens is you become more responsible. So, and that's the reason here, and this particular process obviously depends on, see, can you teach somebody ethics who is just fighting to earn his own one roti or 1 or 2 meals a day? You cannot teach him. Obviously he is ethical because he knows the pain and things like that, but you cannot expect those things from the person because the person is in very different situation. So generally we don't expect somebody who is really struggling to be ethical, but we expect a lot of ethical behavior is somebody who is sitting at the position of decision making. Also what happens, because you climb up the ladder, your control, because now your dependence on the others is reduced. This is the best way to reduce the dependence, because here now your control over material and other resources is less, but your control on yourself is more. This is what the essay that the other day was talking about. Self-realization is the perhaps most important thing that everybody should be following for. So this is how basically pleasantness is the driving force, and what happens if you learn, understand and inculcate the ethical principles, try to follow it, your sources of pleasantness becomes better, refined, less dependent on others, and automatically you become more suitable, more contributory to the society. So that's the reason this particular thing that we were talking about, why this ethics came into picture altogether by the UPSC, and otherwise also why people talk about ethics, is different methods to inculcate ethics. This is one of the method that UPSC has brought in, like you study it and try to understand its importance logically. There are different ways. Religion has played a very important role in inculcating and kind of injecting those ethical values in person, because the person anyway has the belief in God. So now the God is made to be filled with these ethical values. So the person who believes in that God for his own personal reasons also happen to believe all the positive aspects. He is compelled from inside to believe in that positive aspects, that is ethical moral aspects, to follow, and that's how religion makes the person more ethical if the person is religious enough. Okay, so that's the logic, the overall ethics as in positive aspect, because ultimately it's all about ethical. What is ethical basically, and what is the golden rule of ethic? Basically it is selflessness. You think less about yourself, your own interests, not out of compulsion, but because you are not bothered much, you are not dependent much on your own concern. Your own concern is anyway taken care of. So you have an ability, you are in the situation and the position to think about others more. That's how you become more and more ethical. And in this particular context, this is exactly what is expected, that ethics means you think about others more than yourself. कितना more, कितना quantity में करेंगे, that depends on your, you know, upliftment and training and so many other aspects. See, this is one of the ways, this is like a very core kind of way, but how these things happen, there are many factors affecting to it. You know, somebody can be really ethical if somebody has got a lot of you know, wealth. Somebody who has got a lot of wealth might also be unethical. There might be somebody who is not having a lot of wealth but still ethical. Poor person is also ethical. So ethicality is not about external wealth. In fact, your dependence on external wealth, external other people's services goes down, you become more ethical, because, and vice versa, the moment you become more ethical, obviously your dependence goes down. But then you have to have some source of pleasantness, which can be intellectual pleasantness, spiritual pleasantness, emotional pleasantness, other kinds of pleasantness that you have. Then your dependence on others, dependence on exploitation of others and other resources goes down. So you automatically behave more ethically and you concerned about others basically. But obviously what happens, this is then, like, if you keep these things like this only on the people to decide, it will be difficult. So what we do is, we have some ethical principles and we try to project them. This is the kind of a training, this is the kind of a method where this upliftment happens. So what we are expecting from the training of ethics is a person, particular person, okay, you know, travels this path and depends less and less on others and other resources, so that it is better for the society, the existence of the person becomes better for the society. But does that only happen, or will we wait for these things to happen just like that naturally? No. So we have many methods to it. You know, the most important method that you already know is law. Law is enforced ethics basically. Law is nothing but enforced ethics of the day. Okay, this I am talking about democratic law. Democracy ने बनाया हुआ जो law होता है, that I am not talking about exploitative authoritarian regime. That is not law. That is just a exploitative measure for everything. Second is education. Now, in the education, what we do is inspire. Okay, then inculcate, understand. So this UPSC, so this through education and you know, inspiration and things like that, we can also go up the ladder, any individual. So that happens through education. Okay, now education includes inspiring people. So basically what happens is, this is from inside out and this is outside in. So this anyway happens. This is, you know, this is a particular behavior you are expecting from the person. If he or she was ethical, the kind of behavior that you expect from the person is what you are forcing the person to follow. So that, now that's why law is always bare minimum, where you don't expect one person to be at least harmful to the others. We have human rights and things like that. So don't at least harm. So law is to stop at least a bare minimum net which restrains or restricts people from harming others. But what about the other step? See, you have to also inspire them to do good thing. So this restricts unethical behavior and this inspires ethical behavior. ठीक है, ठीक. समझ में आ रहा है? So these are the two ways we generally have, and obviously our thing along with, see, this aspect that we are talking about, this that UPSC is trying to do so that this is achieved, this falls under kind of a education. So you understand, you learn, and you try to follow it, try to inculcate it, and you become better and better person. So your tastes, your sources of pleasantness becomes refined, becomes better. So that is what is expected from this particular paper from you also, that this makes you think at least what is right, what is wrong, why it is right, why it is wrong. Like when we say understand, we are talking about logical basis, knowing the logical basis of what is right and wrong. So right and wrong we can judge intuitively, we know ये सही है, ये गलत है, but there would be some complex situations where obviously you need to decode and then decide what is right and wrong. But your inclination to do right thing is because what is right thing for you? Is it right for me to think about myself only, or is it right for me to think about others also? That kind of situation comes into picture, then it's a ethical question. Okay. So this is what basically why UPSC is coming with this particular paper. Now let us see how, it's basically the syllabus, how UPSC has thought of this particular topic and how they have designed and how they have thought of the syllabus for this. Okay. So this is the syllabus. It talks about ethics, integrity, and aptitude. Basically, these terms very vague. There is no coherence, there is no continuity. Okay, if this paper had to be named, the paper's name should have been morality, okay, social psychology, and ethics in administration. Okay, so that should be the name, if at all it has to be like that, but it's okay. They have given this name ethics and integrity and aptitude. Now aptitude is about efficiency of doing something. Integrity is about, generally as an administrator it is considered integrity, or a human being, integrity is very important. What you think, what you believe in, what you follow, everything is in sync. Ethics is a set of principles. Okay, ethics is will be okay. More ethics and morality. The name here, the name could have been like this. See, why I am saying this, the rest of the syllabus is okay. I am talking about name only. Ethics and morality, social psychology, and even governance is also okay. Ethics in administration or ethics in governance. So why I am telling this is, accordingly you understand the paper. Okay. So ethics and morality, social psychology, and third is ethics in governance. Governance is ethics from the point of view of administration, specifically administration. Social psychology is society in general, the way they behave, psychology of the society, because as an administrator, see, the point is here, you are an administrator, correct? So here is you are an administrator, Now here this is more like a personal thing, this is social, and this is administration. What it means is you are expected to understand ethics from the personal point of view under ethics and morality, from social point of view how society behaves, because as an administrator you should know all the things, because as an administrator you are individual also, you are part of the society also, and you are part of the administration also. So you understand one, yourself and all other selves, individuals, how morality gets built up and all that. Second, you know how society at large functions and what kind of social psychology that they have, how they function. And third, how administration function. So that's why these three aspects are there in the syllabus, and that's why, as I said, name should have been what? Name should have been okay. Name should have been this more than ठीक. I understood the logic behind these things and what is the way you should understand it properly. Okay. Now, this paper will include questions to test the candidate's attitude. हमने बात की ना, your attitude towards things. See, need to understand. That's why we are saying हम this process improves your attitude towards ethical values. Like you know what is right and what is wrong, but you know it properly, then you appreciate the incline and internalize. So your attitude towards the something called ethical and moral value enhances. So it becomes more and more positive, because you know attitude can be either negative or positive or neutral. Neutral is not an attitude, so not having attitude and having neutral attitude is same thing. So basically attitude is either positive or negative. So UPSC obviously expects you to have positive attitude towards ethical aspects of life and administration, and that would happen through this process. That's what UPSC is expecting. ठीक? Candidates' attitude and approach to the issues relating to integrity, probity in public life, and his problem-solving approach to various issues and conflicts faced by him in dealing with the society. Questions may utilize the case study approach to determine these aspects. ठीक? Case study वाला तो अलग ही aspect है. It's very very applied and very very unique. Each and every case is unique in its nature. So what they are saying, your integrity, probity in public life, and problem-solving approach to various issues. So here, your understanding of your own self, your morality, your ethics, how you have been able to shape your morality, what values fall under your morality, with what intensity and things like that. You understand yourself better, so that you can make yourself more and more ethical person, in the sense somebody who is more inclined towards following it, somebody who is having more positive attitude towards ethical values. Second, in public life, as we discussed, society, you being part of the society, how things function and things like that, and problem solving approach, because as an administrator you are always required to solve problems. Okay. See, administration is what? Your work in administration is just decision making all the time. You have to take some or the other decision all the time, on the basis of, so are you taking decision on the basis of scientific thinking? Are you taking on the basis of emotional prejudices and things like that? So those aspects would be, and your understanding of things. Intellectual capacity is also very important, isn't it? Unless you understand the complexity, how would you decide what is right and what is wrong? Okay. what is good for the others, because when the situation becomes sometimes becomes so complex that you are not able to decipher as to what is good for the people, like doing this would be good, doing that would be good, you yourself are not very clear about it. So that situation you might be in that particular situation, it helps for you to have the problem solving approach to the various issues. So next, so what are the points, how they have divided the syllabus? We already talked about basic, that is philosophical, socio-psychological, okay, you understand the psychology of the society, and then administration obviously. Basically administration is the applied part. Basically everything is been kind of inculcated in you, so that what happens, you try to be a better administrator, because you are going to be an administrator, so that's what they are expecting from you. So first is ethics and human interface. So essence, determinants, consequences of ethics in so this is very basics of ethics, like what ethics is, how it functions, mota theoretical aspects of it. Ethics ka kya base hai, like is there any strong established stream which talks about ethics? Yes. What are the thoughts? What are the thoughts that somebody who is very intelligent have put in? Okay, because this is bringing out the complexity of the things, knowing things in a better way. What all the some thinkers and people like that have brought in their point of view, which perhaps is more logical. So understand how things work. Second is human values, lessons from the lives and teachings of the great leaders, reformers and administrators. Here it is about inspiration, by the way. Some people get confusion. These are people who have done ethical thing in their life, okay, and don't get confused with some the other aspect which will, yes, here this one, don't get confused with this, contribution of moral thinkers and philosophers from the Indian world. This is thinkers, so they make you understand the ethics better. Like for example, here people who are the people who fall here? Kant, okay, Mill, all the philosophers like Aristotle, okay, Socrates, then Spinoza. Many people have their own ethical aspects, okay, ethical principles. And then in India there are many, like Buddha, he has given his own principle. In India, it's very difficult to find out these two, like differences between these two, because somebody who has given something is the one who has followed it. Okay, so people like Vivekananda, who is inspiring others and living life accordingly. So from Indian perspective, it's very difficult to differ from each other. Like, but here lessons from great leaders and all, here like Abraham Lincoln. If you talk about somebody who is not Indian, Abraham Lincoln, okay, then we have Mother Teresa, okay, and then many other people who have contributed, Gandhi. But point is, in India what happens? Gandhi falls here also because he has his views also. Ambedkar, he will fall here also, there also. But point is, here human values, lessons and lives of teachings of the great leaders and administrators. Yahan pe somebody who has followed a great life, who has contributed to the society in a big, very, very big way, उनके life and perspective से देखना है. यहाँ पे some thinkers who have decoded perhaps the lives of the people from here in a very logical kind of way. That is the thing we have to follow, understand here. Okay. Then Then comes the important point is attitude. Now attitude, what is attitude, how attitude is made, and what is the importance of attitude in administration and ethical behavior in administration and also from the society in general. So attitude very important because attitude decides your behavior with respect to something. Attitude decides the decision making, the rationale behind your own decision making. So content, structure, functions and its influence relation to thought and behavior. Yes, moral and political attitude, social influence and persuasion. So this is all about attitude basically, and how this social influence, persuasion, these things are used to change the attitude of the person in a positive direction. Basically social attitude of the people in general. Aptitude and foundational values of civil service, like integrity, impartiality, non-partisanship. There is a question this year, what is the difference between the two, how impartiality and non-partisanship are different from each other. Objectivity, dedication to public service, empathy, tolerance, compassion towards weaker section, and etc. There are many kind of aspects here. See, so and we also have to study this ethics from two aspects. One is to understand, that is rational, logical, understanding things, knowing terms and things like that. And second is inculcate or get inspired. So you have to open your personality also for this topic, not just your brain. So you have to also feel, as I said, you have to also be able to open to receive the positive comments about it. Okay, you have to also be able to receive the and ready to have some changes in your own personality towards positive things once you understand it. ठीक? So, and then comes contribution of moral thinkers, philosophers from the world. तो यहाँ तक का जो part है, this is part 1 basically, which include basics of ethics and things like that, philosophical aspect and social psychology aspect, right? Then comes the governance aspect. Now, governance aspect is more like a application based. So unless you have a understanding here, it will be very difficult to write answers here. But basically, this is application of the same thing here, like public servant values, ethics in public administration, status and problems, ethical concerns and dilemmas in the government, private institution, laws, rules, regulations and conscience as the sources of ethical guidance, accountability and ethical governance, strengthening of ethical and moral values, governance, ethical issues in international relations and funding, corporate governance. So then this becomes more and more complex. Here initially you understand things, what is right, what is wrong, what is the basis on which right is decided, what is the basis on which wrong is decided, how much wrong, how much right, how people should follow things, right? And this particular aspect, this is administration or governance, we already classified it, administration or governance. So here it's like an application part of the first thing. So probity in governance, concept of public service, philosophical basis of the governance and probity, information sharing, transparency in the government, right to information, code of ethics, ये instruments हैं जो हमने बोला, typically administration में कैसे उसको काम करना है. Okay, from the ethics, from the administration point of view आप उसको कैसे देख रहे हैं. And last and very important because it takes around ये खुद एक 120 मार्क्स का पेपर ही है अलग से, इसका अलग से हम देखेंगे कि ये दोनों चीज़ों का एप्लीकेशन यहाँ पे आपको, सो आपको टर्म्स, टर्मिनोलॉजीज, थेरीज, फिलोसॉफीज पता होनी चाहिए कि कौन क्या है, कहाँ क्या, कैसे सेट हुआ फिलोसॉफी, एथिक्स कैसे सेट हुआ, एथिक्स कैसे, how it went on establishing itself as a stream of knowledge, and then how it gets applied to the administration, public administration, and how it gets specifically applied to that particular case where, because in administration basically what you are going to do is tackling the different scenarios in front of you, that is called case study only. So you tackle these kind of scenarios that are there in front of you with respect to taking decisions. So case study में वो चीज़ और अच्छे से जो है, मतलब you have to sit in the chair of the administrator and decide. So your perhaps practicality and your ability to tackle more and more situations, more complex situations, everything would be kind of judged there. Everything would be understood there from the point of view of ethics. So this is all is the syllabus of this thing, of which this part would be taken care by me, which I hope that I would like to inspire you to follow more and more ethics and things like that, okay. And the attitude and the content and the structure, you know about the attitude. This is more like a, as we discussed, social psychology part, and this is again more in the sense of little bit more technical than others. These are also technical, but in terms of knowing some terms, and we will see some terms today just to have a hang of things. We'll have we'll understand the terms and things like that, okay. ठीक. So we discussed like why one has to be ethical, you know, what makes something ethical and things like that. So now what we will see is some terms we will see, you know, ethics and morality. Okay, let's one more thing is very important in the kind of UPSC's pattern of this thing is, and that is quotes. Now quotes is again doing the same thing that we have been discussing. Okay, so quote is the same thing that we have been discussing. Basically, quote is basically inspiration, you know, quotes generally inspire, okay. Then quotes also guide us. What are quotes? Quotes are generally very loaded and very kind of heavy meanings that they will carry, which we have to decode point by point to actually understand what the quote is suggesting. And quote generally helps us have a broad thinking, because generally हम बोलते हैं ना कि ये बड़ी बड़ी बातें होती हैं, these are like great thoughts, so they act as some kind of a solace, some kind of a anchor when you are in some situations where you might not be feeling yourself in your control vis-a-vis doing moral things, vis-a-vis doing right things. So there you will realize that you will suddenly feel that you need something to hang on, something to anchor upon. So quotes will do that work. Then what happens generally, quote is best or apt explanation or message. तो quotes generally क्या होता है, very apt and best way of sending that particular message. So that's why quote is very, very important. How to tackle the quote and all that we'll see in the lectures of the quotes. We have separate lectures for the quotes and the case studies apart from the syllabus. So but the point here is you need to understand as to why quotes are being asked every year. I think only 1 year they had not asked, but in that case also they had asked some questions which are actually quotes and discuss and comment and like that. So but generally they have asked, even this year also they have asked quotes. because the great people are nothing but the lighthouses for us to carry our life in a more ethical, more positive way, because being ethical, it is always good for others, and if everybody does it, it is everybody's happiness together. So it's like you can be happy only if others are happy wala scene hai. So you have to make sure that others are happy, so automatically everybody will make sure that others are happy, so everybody will be happy, and that too I am happy to keep you happy. So it's a win-win situation. Otherwise what happens, you are happy, but for your happiness I have to sacrifice a lot, so I might not be happy in the process of keeping you happy, right? So point here is these quotes and things like that inspire us. And again the same thing, quote is like a shot, like a vaccine shot. Obviously herd immunity and all develop to ho hi jati hai, lekin quote is like a vaccine shot where you get so many antibodies suddenly. It's a rush of positive aspects. So ये चीज जो होती है, ये वाली चीज कोट से थोड़ा सा फास्ट हो जाती है, सो दैट्स वाई इट्स लाइक अ शॉट. ठीक है, तो अभी हम कुछ टर्म्स देखते हैं, एकदम बेसिक टर्म्स, उसका क्या मतलब है एंड क्या है, सो दैट यू हैव अ हैंग ऑफ थिंग्स, हाउ थिंग्स वर्क, एंड एथिक्स में कैसे, व्हाट आर द टर्म्स दैट वी जनरली यूज. सो ये वाली चीज़ें तो हमने देख ही ली, सॉरी, एथिक्स एंड मोरालिटी. तो जनरली क्या होता है, सिंपल है, कोई ज़्यादा कन्फ्यूजन नहीं है, बहुत उस पर ज़्यादा डिबेट करने की भी ज़रूरत नहीं है. जनरली एथिक्स एंड मोरालिटी इंडिकेट करते हैं, लाइक you are talking about something right, something good for the others, something good for the society. So ethics and morality is lagbhag same cheez. Generally we use it as a like use it interchangeably. What happens, but there are some differences, like this is, ethics is more codified. Now when we say codified, it is not written, but it is, you can say, well accepted or normalized or conventionalized in a society. Okay. This morality, again not very different, but this is more individual specific. Okay, so basically ethics is about society, morality is about individual. जैसे like there are some things you do in your life, especially the transitionary society that we are in now, India. You do things which they are not wrong and you are okay about it, but you do it so that you don't anger others, so you do it discreetly. You may not want to declare it to others, you do it, there is no sense of guilt in you, but you don't want to show it off to others because perhaps they may not like it. That is, this situation is happening because it is right, there is nothing wrong in it, very well, andar se, not just to justify yourself, but that why to anger others, because others feel that as a wrong thing. So that society is generally slow. Okay, society is a slow process, but what happens, it follows morality of ethics, morality of person. So what happens generally, relation is morality, that is individual, and ethics, that is society. They obviously impact each other. impact or influence. They obviously influence each other. Influence. So morality is a set of principles, set of values that one considers to be ethical moral values. Obviously we are talking about the kind of values that person would have, the kind of values that person would like to follow in their life, which may not be agreed upon by others in the society. You might have your own things to do, but others may not agree to that, so you follow according to your own understanding of things. So that's why there might be some different set of values, different set of ethics and morality, but ultimately what happens, you end up following whatever you think it is right. If it is right also from the society's point of view, so you can say that it has become ethics. Okay, it's like your own thought, society is yet to accept, it will remain your morality, it's not yet part of it. Society of ethics of society, but some of your thoughts which society has accepted and internalized and part and conventionalized, I would say normalized, conventionalized, then it becomes ethics of the society along with your morality. So basically morality मतलब set of values जो एक individual accept करता है या follow करता है. Ethics ऐसा है जो वो individual know that the group is following it. Now this group can be basically the biggest group is society or the nation and things like that. But during the groups also your ethics can be different, morality can be different. Okay, so coming back to the thing, तो सोसाइटी वो पर्सन स्पेसिफिक वगैरह होता है मोरालिटी, उतना आई थिंक इतना आपको समझ में आ ही जाएगा. Then let's go with the some keywords. What are the meanings that we are going to use the words? So what are the meaning of those words, because we are going to use it, so it's better we know it. Now one is beliefs. Now what is beliefs? Beliefs are the internal feeling as something is true. Belief, and there is a very, very strong positive attitude towards belief. Belief, you always have a strong positive attitude, means it's very difficult to remove the belief from a person's this thing. It's not impossible, but it is difficult because it has become part and parcel of not just your intellectual understanding but also your experience of life. So you value beliefs much more. Okay, you identify yourself with that belief. That's why it's very difficult to get rid of it, because if you start getting rid of it, it's like you are getting rid of what? Your own identity, which very difficult, which you will never like to do. So belief or internal feeling as something true. It is not directly proven but inferred from available, that's okay. Belief plays a very important role in shaping the ethical values system of the person, which in turn constitutes the ethical character of the person. So आपके जो belief है उसके, then obviously belief is like such a thing which you consider as true. So उसके बाद जो logical चीजें उससे flow होती है, that becomes your value. Like for example, if you believe that everybody has the same Atma, like you believe in some religious concept of Hinduism, and you strongly believe that everybody has the Atma, and that Atma is nothing but the ansh, the part, the trace of the Almighty or the God or the Brahm or the Bhagwan, whoever. In that case, if you genuinely believe that, very unlikely that you would like to harm someone. Okay, you would never like to harm someone, because you know the God resides in that person also, and God resides in this person also. So accordingly your belief will shape your personality. But if you believe, for that matter, that life is nothing, you just enjoy, forget about anything else, death is the end of everything, so just enjoy the way you want to, and बाकियों का enjoyment का देखा जाएगा, because I don't think that, see, they have their own right, but whenever there is a clash there will be fight. I am ready for the fight. So if your belief system is so materialistic, obviously your behavior will be most of the time unethical. You will not be bothered about others because your botheration is only about your own materialistic kind of pleasures and gains and things like that. So accordingly your beliefs will change. So belief is that kind of a internal feeling that something is very true, and you have some set of beliefs. Yeah, this is true, this is true. So and accordingly your rest of the things, rest of the logic follows. So belief is not just about religious belief. Okay, belief is not just about God and things. Belief can be about anything else. Like I believe, that my parents have done a great job for me, and obviously that belief is based on some information, but you may not know the information when you are very young, but you believe because you have seen it, and there is a sense of, and that if that's the belief that you have, then you have a sense of gratitude for them. So automatically ethics follow through that belief. ठीक? Second is value. Now value का क्या मतलब होता है? See, value is something which you value. No, means you think that particular thing being very important for your own existence, for your own pleasantness that we talked about. So आपके pleasantness के लिए, आपके intellectual satisfaction के लिए, आपके material satisfaction के लिए वो चीज़ बहुत important है. जब आपको लगता है तब आप उसको value मानते हैं. Now यहाँ पे value का मतलब, like people say I value money because he or she thinks that money is most important thing in his life. If not for that money, it's very difficult to continue the way the kind of life that person is continuing. There will be some problems according to his or her own idea about it. Now, values are building blocks of one's morality. They shape the conscience of an individual. Well, here we are talking about ethical values, like values about some principles, some ethical principles, any principle which propagates selflessness, any principle that propagates behaving concerning others first than yourself. So उसको हम values, ethical values बोलते हैं. Ethical means basically whenever we use term ethics or morality, you have to be sure that we are talking about scenario where others are more important than me. ये वाला scene जहाँ है वो ethical है, ठीक है? और others benefit, others welfare is more important for me. उस केस में. और यहाँ पे वैल्यूज मतलब हम एथिकल वैल्यूज की ही बात करेंगे. सो जो एथिकल वैल्यूज आप ज़्यादा स्ट्रांगली होल्ड करते हैं, ठीक है, वो पर्टिकुलर एथिकल वैल्यू के हिसाब से आपका एथिकल बिहेवियर भी चेंज होता है. लाइक फॉर एग्जांपल इफ यू कंसिडर परहैप्स डिग्निटी एज अ वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट वैल्यू, so what happens, whatever may be the situation of the person, whatever may be the level of the position of the person, you make sure that you behave in a dignified, proper way with the person, because you would not like the person to feel that his dignity was somehow tempered with or some harmed upon. Okay, so they are particular and personal to the individual. Values guide the individual in terms of everything. तो और values क्या होता है? Yes, ethical dilemma के समय then like for example there is a value of dignity and punctuality. Conflicting scenario था कि you wanted to do this thing so that because you value punctuality, but you also wanted to do this thing because you also value dignity. So like it's difficult for a situation gets created in front of you, then you compromise one of the values for the other and you solve the ethical dilemma or you act accordingly. But those values and your insistence of those values is very important when the ethical dilemma has to be resolved. उस situation में वो आ जाता है मामला, ठीक है. Then most famous word in ethics paper, that is integrity. What is integrity? अगर आपको define करना है, integrity is the practice of being honest and showing consistent upcoming adherence to the strong moral principles, ethical principles and values. In ethics, integrity is regarded as the honesty and truthfulness of accuracy of one's actions. It is considered as a personal choice of an individual which is uncompromising under any kind of adversarial circumstances. It ensures correct actions and stands in the stark contrast to the hypocrisy. Thus, integrity is harmonious relationship between what we think, what we say and what we do. Now, integrity को हम अलग अलग पर्सपेक्टिव से देख सकते हैं. Like one is, you know what is correct, you know what is right, you know what is ethical, then doing according to it, saying according to it, it's one integrity, because basically integrity is oneness, harmony, okay, the sense of oneness in what you do, but another thing is there is something called moral integrity, intellectual integrity. Now intellectual integrity means what? आपके अंडरस्टैंडिंग में फ्लॉ नहीं होना चाहिए. See, intellectual integrity is a kind of a principle that you have to follow if you really have to understand things. Like there are some laws of logic, laws of continuity, laws of many different law of contradiction. If you contradict one particular thing, like take example of discrimination. So if you are against caste system, you have to be against patriarchy also. Simple. Because then if you are not, then you lack intellectual integrity. Reasons might be different, but you are not able to understand that any kind of discrimination is wrong, be it based on the caste, be it based on the gender. So no discrimination is ethical. That comes through the concept of integrity. So intellectual integrity. So you understand one thing in one perspective and the other thing in the same logical perspective. That is intellectual integrity, oneness of logic or intellect. But moral integrity, जो हम बोलते हैं कि हम lack of hypocrisy or absence of hypocrisy, you say something and you do something else, that's not considered integrity, okay, and that too consistently, because see, even once you deviate from it, you would not be considered as having integrity, because integrity is such a kind of value that you have to nurture all the time. It's not that you show the integrity once and then later on you can relax, not like that, because you need to understand one thing, it's not natural, it's not very natural to be ethical, okay, because we have evolved from the situation where self-interest and survival for the fittest was the thing, and still there are remnants of this genetic information in us, and we behave like that. But point is, now for society to sustain, and we all agree that everybody is free to do personal development. It's not like everybody is free to have their personal growth and personal well-being, but not at the cost of well-being of others. So this is most accepted principle only by everyone. It's not that somebody just thrust upon the principle on us. If we also talk about it, we would anytime we will go positive about it. We will always be ready to accept this principle as principle to be followed while doing our life. So we have accepted to be ethical. But what happens? You accept to be ethical, you accept to do something, and later on for your narrow self-interest, because here the issue is between narrowness and broadness. So what happens? If it is narrow self-interest, you deviate from the larger perspective that you yourself had agreed upon. Because, and why you agreed? Because you benefited out of it. So because others are behaving ethical with you, so you got benefited out of it. But now when the time came for you to behave in that way, you deviated. So there you are understood to have lack of integrity. And lack of integrity is a very problematic thing in administration, because administration has, as an administrator, you have a lot of power and authority. So you can really change things. You can really impact lives of the people. So integrity becomes very important there. Okay. Then responsibility. Responsibility तो पता ही है, your ability to respond. But responsibility यहाँ पे क्या है? जैसे हम बोलते हैं जिम्मेदारी. तो रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी क्या है? एक सेंस ऑफ ओनरशिप कि इन लोगों के प्रॉब्लम सॉल्व करने की जो रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी है, एक ओनस है, वो मुझ पे है. Again, it's an ethical value because you're putting others' well-being in front than your own. So what happens here? What you are doing is it's a moral value according to which person feels a sense of ownership. Now ownership not in the sense of exploitation, but ownership in the sense of well-being of the person. Like the way you are bothered about, you put a lot of efforts for your own well-being, you have to put efforts for others' well-being. That way your sense of responsibility for that particular thing comes up. But here one more this thing is why it is ownership is because then when you have a sense of responsibility, you do not tend to dodge the thing that is coming in, that which needs your attention, which may not impact you. See, administration में ऐसे situations बहुत आते हैं that if you don't act, it is not going to give much harm to you. Your life will go on almost in the same way. But in others' lives, perhaps that is going to create a big problem. Okay, like for example, the corona pandemic is coming, and as a DM, you are not doing enough. Means there might be people who are losing life or might be falling ill and losing the very important days of their life, and perhaps some physical strength and things like that they will lose. Okay, but and that is only because you sitting at that position, you are not taking the responsibility. Their sense of ownership is not there. See, responsibility is one of the most important value, most important ethical value that for an administrator, because it is inherent in you being an administrator. You are administrator means you are responsible for doing things, and responsibility is very suo motu in the thing, in the sense it is expected to be felt from within. In case you are not seen that you're not seen doing it properly or doing up to the mark, there are some instruments called accountability. So accountability is basically a kind of a legal instrument or post facto instrument to ensure the responsibility. So somebody has taken responsibility would be very happy to be accountable for anything, but somebody who is not, so accountability comes into the picture as a mechanism to ensure, post facto mechanism to ensure the responsibility was there in the first place. So accountability next वही होगा कि accountability क्या होता है कि एक responsibility को ensure करने का एक माध्यम है, एक method है, ठीक है, कि legal provisions हो सकते हैं, accountability means उत्तरदायित्व, you have to give answers to the questions in case you have done something wrong, accordingly वो देखा जाता है, ठीक है. Transparency, transparency comes into picture basically in the context of administration, very important because you are sitting as a trustee. Okay, the concept of trusteeship. So as an administrator we are trustee. Now when we are trustee means what is our treasure, what is our strength, what is our main thing on which the whole thing is standing, that is trust that we have of others, like others have trust in us. Now how would others have trust in us? Because if situation becomes very complex, like the way it is in the administration, others will continue to have trust in you only if you are transparent enough, you are able to show things to them, they are able to see things for themselves, and then only they will trust. So trust continues only if you have transparency. So transparency is very important to continue trust. So transparency is also, again, it's a process, it's a mechanism, and it also can be suo motu like responsibility, but it also can be ensured through some mechanism. Okay, so transparency is information. Basically, transparency is all about information. Now, rationality and objectivity is very interesting stuff. Rationality is based on logical thinking, objectivity is based on facts. So any decision should be based on facts and not my own prejudices. And again, rationality, that is logical thinking, not emotional or any passionate thinking. So अगर कोई भी situation में ऐसा है, जैसे मान के चलो कि there has been two people are fighting with each other, doing violent stuff, hitting each other. One of them is your friend or your sister or your brother, whatever. So, and obviously as a friend you don't want, but you are a police officer. So, objectivity means you don't discriminate between the two. Okay, that you punish both of them without thinking that one is my sister or brother or I have emotionally connected. Nothing of that sort. You punish both of them is objectivity. But you start hitting them, both of them equally, there is not rationality. It might be objectivity, but it's not rationality. In the sense, it has to take taken to the most logical and rational next step. That is bringing them to the police station. So, just for sake of understanding, I am suggesting it that if you are fact based and not based on your own emotion, you are objective, and upon being fact based, how are you going to process those facts? Are you going to process those facts on the basis of emotion or on the basis of rationality and logic? Then it's a rational. So, for an administrator, you are expected to be rational and ऑब्जेक्टिव. ठीक है, आई होप कि वो चीज समझ में आ गया. देन नॉन पार्टीशनशिप, इम्पार्शलिटी. नाउ ये क्वेश्चन भी आया था अभी इसका. नॉन पार्टीशनशिप मीन्स एक्सरसाइजिंग वंस अथॉरिटी विथ नो फेवर टू एनीवन एज अगेंस्ट द अदर. पार्टीशन बिहेवियर नहीं करना है, एक को कुछ और बिहेवियर दिया या दूसरे को कुछ और, ये नहीं करना है. This brings is the sense of equality and justice in administration. This constitutes the most crucial aspect of the administration. Police officers taking action against all type of political violence, irrespective of their party in power. So, non-partisanship. Okay. And impartiality क्या होता है? It is ethical value wherein one does not use her discretion to favor somebody. So, impartiality में generally favor होता है, non-partisanship में दोनों को equal treat करने का बात होता है. वेरी सिमिलर टू ईच अदर, बहुत डिफरेंट नहीं है एक दूसरे से. ठीक है. अ डिस्ट्रिक्ट मैजिस्ट्रेट अलाउज द टेंडर टू द पार्टी विथ मेरिट एंड नॉट टू द पार्टी इन्वॉल्विंग हिज फ्रेंड्स डिस्पाइट सच अ डिमांड फॉर अ फेवर फ्रॉम द फ्रेंड्स. ठीक है. डिमांड फॉर ए फेवर फ्रॉम फ्रेंड. तो सिचुएशन यहाँ पे क्या है? इम्पार्शियलिटी में you don't favor someone basically, and you favor or you go with merit, you go with logic, you go with justice. Non partisanship में क्या होता है कि favor से ज़्यादा you treat the two differently. Basically impartiality also kind of a non partisanship, you can say non partisanship is also kind of impartiality, but दोनों में subtle difference ये है कि impartiality में favor होता है, ओके, एंड मेरिट नहीं देखा जाता, जस्टिस नहीं देखा जाता, लॉ नहीं देखा जाता. एंड नॉन पार्टीशनशिप में क्या होता है? आप एक को किसी और के अगेंस्ट ट्रीट करते हैं. ओके, तो उसमें लॉ, लाइक फॉर एग्जांपल इन फ्रंट ऑफ लॉ ऑल्सो, इफ यू ट्रीट समवन विद generally two are there and you being partial with someone means there are two and you are inclined with one in this particular scenario. इम्पार्शियलिटी में क्या होता है? नॉन पार्टीशनशिप में कि आप ट्रीटमेंट में मे बी यू आर गिवन ट्रीटमेंट टुडे एंड आफ्टर 2 years योर ब्रदर ऑल्सो कमिंग टू द सिचुएशन, नाउ यू आर नॉट गिविंग द सेम ट्रीटमेंट, सो इट इज नॉट नॉन पार्टीशनशिप. ओके, सो नॉन पार्टीशनशिप इज इन द ट्रीटमेंट एंड पार्टीशनशिप, impartiality is about favor. Discretion, very important aspect in ethics. Discretion means what? You're applying your own volition, your own thinking process, your own thing. See, you need to understand one thing. A decision can only be ethical or unethical. It can be only judged on the ethical principle only and only if the person has applied his or her discretion there. क्योंकि अगर like if you're putting gun on my head and asking to steal somebody's pocket, I am not culprit because I am not applying my discretion. I am doing it because I have to save my life. So discretion, that's not unethical for me. That is unethical for the person who is putting gun on my head. So basically, point is, if it is discretion only, it has to be evaluated on the basis of ethics. And discretion is a very, very, very powerful, very important thing as an administrator, you may get a sense of high because you have a discretion, you can decide on the basis of myself, but it should not be on the basis of yourself, it should be on the basis of data that you have, it should be on the basis of the other aspects, subjective aspect if you want to take into consideration. On the basis of that you have to take decision, not basis on anything else. Okay, then you know what is dutifulness. Dutifulness is you do something because you have a sense of duty very strong that you have to do it. Okay, so कोई भी चीज होती है कि I am doing it because it's my duty. Whether it will be like good, bad, I don't know. The patient is in front of me. I am a doctor. I will treat him or her. I am not bothered whether the patient is Ajmal Kasab or some saint or some cricketer or some whoever. That's not bothered. As far as the person is coming, I am doing my duty. I have to save human being. So dutifulness administration में भी expected होता है कि impartial होने के लिए dutifulness बहुत जरूरी होता है. ठीक है. Then conscience का तो हम और अच्छे से पढ़ेंगे जब कांट के इसमें पढ़ेंगे. बट ये एक अंदर अपने आपके हर एक के अंदर एक कंपास होता है. कंपास पता है जो लाइक नॉर्थ क्या है साउथ क्या है वो दिखाता है. वैसे एक डायरेक्शन दिखाने वाला एक चीज होता है, एक मैकेनिज्म होता है विच ऑलवेज पॉइंट्स टुवर्ड्स राइट. नाउ व्हेन आई से राइट, इट्स नॉट अबाउट राइट हैंड वाला राइट, रॉन्ग एंड राइट वाला राइट. सही क्या है गलत क्या है वो क्लैरिटी देने वाला चीज जो है उसको बोलते हैं कॉन्शियस. वेदर यू फॉलो इट और नॉट, when your conscience says this is right but because of some situation you are not able to do it, that is called crisis of conscience that we talked about कि corona है and if you want to help someone and you are not able to help, you have a sense of conscience, sense of crisis of conscience. ठीक है. so conscience और डिटेल में लेटर पढ़ेंगे, ये तो बस टर्म्स हैं. गिल्ट तो आपको पता ही है. जब आप कॉन्साइंस के खिलाफ जाते हैं तो अंदर से एक निगेटिव अनईजी फीलिंग आती है अबाउट योर सेल्फ. दैट इज अ सेंस ऑफ गिल्ट. एक वो निगेटिव फीलिंग है. यू वांट टू गेट रिड ऑफ द फीलिंग. इट्स नॉट अ प्लेजेंट फीलिंग, इट्स अ अनप्लेजेंट फीलिंग. एंड दैट गिल्ट जो है आपको फोर्स करती है टू डू राइट थिंग और टू एटलीस्ट डू सम करेक्टिव थिंग इफ यू हैव डन ऑलरेडी समथिंग. ठीक है. सो गिल्ट इज अ वेरी पावरफुल टूल व्हिच फोर्सेस यू टू बिहेव इन अ पर्टिकुलर वे. नाउ क्राइसिस ऑफ कॉन्शियंस तो हमने अभी देख लिया. एथिकल डायलेमा क्या होता है? जो एक सिचुएशन में कोई पर्सन इज नॉट एबल टू डू नॉट एबल टू डिसाइड विच एथिकल वैल्यू टू होल्ड अप और फॉलो. दोनों एथिकल वैल्यू हो और एक दूसरे के कॉन्ट्राडिक्टरी है, लाइक बोथ राइट ओनली बट बोथ कॉन्ट्राडिक्टरी टू ईच अदर. उस केस में डायलेमा हो जाता है और इसलिए एथिकल डायलेमा हो जाता है. देखेंगे और भी उसको. सिंपैथी, एम्पैथी, कंपैशन, ये सब इमोशनल एस्पेक्ट्स हैं कि जिसमें आप दूसरों के प्रति, दूसरों का जो सफरिंग है, दुख है, उससे आपको इंपैक्ट होता है. सो generally compassion is almost like feeling the same way. See, the moment you feel the same way, you'll do something because you'll do for yourself also, you'll do for them also. आपको बहुत ज़्यादा खराब लगता है कि ये नहीं होना चाहिए, वो compassion होता है. You know, compassion is where you are compelled to do some action, okay, because you are able to have that sense, you are able to imagine the same thing happening with you. In that case, you would have done something, you do it for the others. So compassion बहुत strong एक कंटेक्स्ट माना जाता है. जनरली कंपैशन तभी आता है जब कंपैशन इज ऑलवेज एक्सपीरियंस्ड बाय समवन हु इज एट द बेटर advantageous situation as against somebody who is not, because a sense of security and power not in the negative sense but sense of stability जिसमें है वही compassionate हो सकता है. because somebody who is already in problem, it's very difficult to feel have a compassionate feeling in him or her. ठीक है. ग्रेटिट्यूड ऑलरेडी हमने बात करी दी. ग्रेटिट्यूड की क्या है पूरा हमने वही एक्सप्लेन किया था. ग्रेटिट्यूड क्या है? पेनंस, कन्फेशन. पेनंस मतलब गिल्ट के बाद इफ यू आर नॉट एबल टू करेक्ट द सिचुएशन, यू गो थ्रू पेनंस बिकॉज यू हैव टू डू इट. यू हैव टू पनिश योरसेल्फ फॉर द रॉन्ग बिहेवियर. इट्स अ वेरी स्ट्रॉन्ग एथिकल. Penance is a very strong ethical personality. Only strong ethical personality can go for this, because then you are ready to punish yourself just to get rid of those negative things that you have done. Confession is again acceptance. It's a first step of penance. First you confess yourself, then maybe to others, and then if required you go through penance. Forgiveness. Forgiveness, it is the virtue which helps a person to be strong enough to. Forgiveness में क्या होता है? You pardon someone even if you know that person has done mistake or person has done some harm to you. But इससे क्या होता है? It also comes through large-hearted person, in the sense the person in a better situation only can forgive. As Gandhi had said, only strong can forgive. Forgiveness cannot be done by weak people. Only strong can forgive, which is obviously because forgiveness needs strongness. Fairness, it's not fair and lovely wala fairness, it's a justice wala fairness. So you have to treat everybody with a fair logic. Sense of service, spirit of service एक ही है. अब इसमें एक चीज देखना, सर्विस का एक मतलब जो होता है ना, सर्विस में एक प्रिजम्पशन होता है that you are not doing something additional to the person. It's not ihsan, it's not some favor. You are just, but rather you are giving it back to something which you think the other person has already done to you. So it's a paying back of kind of action followed by gratitude basically. So you already feel the person service. When we say service, or spirit of service means you have a sense of obligation. You have a sense of gratitude for something, and accordingly you do it. So sense of service में क्या होता है? You don't just do it because you will get it something. You do it because you already got so many things. See, ethics is all about putting things reverse. Like, I am doing it because you will give me money, or you will give me money because I am doing it. So, I am doing it because you will give me money is a marketplace. But you are giving me money because I have done it, it's a ethics. So, it's a why ethics is always about just ulta. जो चीज़ पहले होनी चाहिए वो पहले होती है मार्केट में, वो बाद में होती है. लाइक you receive something from someone, then you pay back. It's like a sense of gratitude. So sense of service में वो होता है. तो when you be an administrator also, you have to work with the sense of service. Means what? You have to work with that particular sense there where you are doing it because you know the society has already done so many things for you. तो वो हो गया sense of service यहाँ पे. ठीक है? Commitment का तो पता ही है. When you decide something, you do it. That is commitment. You know already the meaning of commitment is the consistency and strength in decision concerning something or someone. It depicts clarity and certainty. Anyway, then justice. Justice is treating people as equal. इक्वल एंड फेयर ट्रीटमेंट. ये जस्टिस तो एनीवे यू नो जस्टिस हम और भी देखेंगे बाद में. जस्टिस इज फेयरनेस, व्हाट इज जस्ट, व्हाट इज नॉट. ठीक है. इक्वालिटी एंड इक्विटी, ट्रीटिंग डिग्निटी इज द बेसिस ऑफ इक्वालिटी एंड इक्वालिटी इज टूल टुवर्ड्स जस्टिस. ठीक है. जस्टिस मतलब absence of discrimination. Okay. And dignity. Now, what is dignity? Dignity is very important. There are many concepts, we have just enlisted some of them. We'll see this dignity and then we'll end the lecture. Dignity is a moral. Dignity में क्या होता है? See, everybody has a sense of self-worth. कि मैं भी कुछ हूँ. Okay. Self-identity, self-worth. My worth is there. Now you have to respect that somebody's sense of worth. Everybody has sense of worth. Dignity is what I have in myself. And what you have to, what ethically what you are expected to do is respect that dignity. Right? So dignity is the sense of self-worth that I have inside me, and I expect that it is to be respected, or I would make sure that I respect somebody else's dignity. Because I have dignity, everybody has dignity, and if I expect others to respect it, I will also respect it. So that's the golden rule. So this is what this thing dignity will end up with something called golden rule of ethics. So ethics में एक golden rule होता है, that is you know already. Treat others, that is called golden rule. So we'll end up with this golden rule today. Treat others the way you wish to be treated. That is ethics, golden rule of ethics. दूसरों के साथ ऐसा व्यवहार करो जो आप चाहते हो वो आपसे करे इन दैट पर्टिकुलर सिचुएशन, दैट इज एथिक्स. सो दिस इज द गोल्डन रूल. ये बहुत जगह आप पेपर में भी यूज करेंगे. सो दिस इज ऑल अबाउट बेसिक थिंग्स एंड ऑल. ठीक है. बाकी चैप्टर हम बाद में नेक्स्ट लेक्चर में देखेंगे स्लोली. ठीक है. we'll have, as I said, into this thing. First is philosophical and social psychological part, which will be taken by me, and rest will be taken by other faculty. ठीक है. And any questions you have, you will be given notes and write up. Okay. Any questions you have, I am always available. Okay. Thank you very much for the patient hearing.